Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Monday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. Is JJ Redick still the front runner for the Lakers head coaching position? I'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, and even on holiday Mondays, Andy. Always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with over 24,000 subscribers, all of whom are wondering if JJ Redick still the front runner as for the Lakers head coaching position, as reports over the weekend indicate. Yes, spoiler alert, Andy. The answer is yes. Yes, he apparently is. Any surprise from you that Redick is still there?
No, it's not particularly surprising, because as we've talked about on many shows, it feels very much like they are looking to manufacture this process in a way that leads them in the direction they want to go, which is JJ Redick. You know, as we mentioned before, the idea of bringing in Coach K as a consultant in this process, unless you are really, really sure he can be a very neutral advisor and just a source that you can bounce ideas off and get his impressions from.
Massive James Borrego fetish.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, that feels like somebody that is going to feed you the information about and perspective about JJ Redick that you are looking to hear. Also, too, it is not surprising to hear that he's still the front runner because, to the best of my knowledge, they have not interviewed anybody since we reported that or relayed the reports that Redick, Borrego, and Cassell had been interviewed. So,
right, there's still and a lot of reporting on this from Marc Stein and from Shams and the Lakers beat guys. They are going to so this week reportedly talk to some of the assistants that they haven't got to yet. The Micah Nori and David Adelman and Chris Quinn in Miami. Those guys are going to interview this week. And then the idea is apparently these are just, these first interviews are just like rap sessions, and just getting to know each other on a human level, just guys talking. And they're going to get more into nuts and bolts basketball.
I mean, it's a good way to avoid asking JJ Redick about some of his impressions from his coaching stints.
Exactly. We don't want to get too deep into that. We'll see what happens with this. I do agree with you. I've said for a while, again, not with any necessarily a lot of insider knowledge, but you just read the tea leaves here, that the starting advantage for somebody like Redick is massive. If he's somebody who, if he starts in the front, is much more likely to hold on to the job than being a guy that they kind of interview as an afterthought. I've made the comparison to what it's like to try to qualify for the bowl championship series, the college football national championship. If you start the preseason ranked as like the 4th ranked team in the country versus the 24th ranked team in the country, like 11-0 means a lot more when you start at number 4. And if Redick is starting at the front of the pack, guys like Adelman and Nori and Quinn or Sam Cassell or name anyone, all have to jump over Redick and or hope that Redick stumbles. And like I said, I just do not think Redick is the kind of guy who's going to have a bad interview.
Well, it's interesting too. Marc Stein and his Substack that everybody should be subscribing to, because Marc Stein is one of the best out there. He wrote recently, quote, "More smoke to support the idea that ESPN's JJ Redick is indeed leading candidate to land the Lakers head coaching job. Rumbles about possible staff targets for Redick have already begun to circulate." And this is where it's really interesting. League sources say fellow Lakers search candidates Sam Cassell and James Borrego would be prime targets for Redick's staff, as well as an expected run to try to bring Mavericks assistant coach Jared Dudley back to Lakerland. Folks may remember that Jared Dudley was an important part in terms of the culture for the 2020 title team. Dudley did not play a lot, but you and I were around that team on a daily basis before the pandemic hit. And Jared Dudley's voice mattered a lot in that locker room. So he could be somebody that I could see the value of bringing him in as a bridge between, the new coach, JJ Redick, who is still going to be learning a lot on the job, no matter how great you think he can be at this, and players that, in LeBron and AD that he knows very well, has played with before. And Dudley is somebody that has always managed to speak and be listened to. But it's just also interesting, the idea that the three guys that we've heard have gotten interviews so far, there already seems to be like a pecking order between them, with them all remaining part of the organization moving forward. So that would really even lend more credence to the idea that, as Shams recently said on the Pat McAfee show, because this adjective keeps coming up, they are infatuated, the Lakers, with JJ Redick.
It's the assistant, the nugget about the assistant coaches that Stein delivered is one that's obviously worth watching, because James Borrego is the associate head coach in New Orleans. Like, that is basically like your 1A, like that. You don't get any higher on a bench than that. And so I don't know exactly, like, do you leave that situation to become the equivalent of that in LA? I mean, can the Lakers pay more for that? What's his contract situation?
Can they? Yes. Will they?
Would New Orleans let him out even to do that? I don't know his contract situation. Like, would Sam Cassell leave a high level assistant job with Boston,
who could win it all? I hate to say it, but they very well may win it all.
Because Cassell wants to be a head coach, and is this the kind of thing that would help him get to that point? And so one of the argument, like, and somebody like Adelman or Nori, those guys, the answer to that is hell freaking no. Are they going to jump ship from the things that are to teach JJ Redick how to be a head coach? Like, that's not something they're going to do. And this question of who will fill out his staff, there's this idea that the Lakers, can surround him with really high-end talent and all this other stuff to help Redick. And again, none of this is me or you editorializing on whether or not we think Redick will be good, because I have no freaking clue. But the mechanics of how you create a support staff around him is really interesting, because, like, I could see situations where coaches want to join that staff, and I could see situations where they absolutely don't. I do not think it is guaranteed that coaches are going to leave good situations to join this staff for this organization, especially that has churned through head coaches quickly over the last few years.
I think that's actually even a bigger factor than the Redick of it all, and whether or not you would leave your situation to even coaching AD, and presumably, we'll talk about it later, presumably LeBron as well, like, and being part of the Lakers, being part of, everything that is a positive that comes with the Lakers. It has been as unstable an environment for the coach as, this is not hyperbole, basically any organization in the league other than, like, the Cavs. The Cavs are the only team in the league, I believe, that have hired more head coaches since 2011, Phil Jackson's last season with the Lakers. So this is not hyperbole on any level. Like, the Lakers have been incredibly unstable. So if you're, say, David Adelman or the Micah Nori with the Timberwolves, like, those are very seemingly, the Timberwolves they've got their own nuttiness going on in terms of ownership and whatnot, but the team itself is in good shape.
They're going to lose, but they're in the Western Conference Finals. I mean, let's stick with this for a second, because we have learned over the years that, the quality of your staff, particularly if you're going to have a guy, even if JJ Redick is brilliant, and he might be, he's clearly no moron. But even if he picks up being a head coach quickly, the quality of his staff is going to be a really big influence on how quickly his learning curve becomes something the Lakers don't need to worry about. So we'll stick into that. And then some related news off of this coaching search related to LeBron and comments Rich Paul has made next.
Locked on Lakers brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's what brings home the winning trophy. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to guarantee your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, or all of the above, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you were looking for. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, with all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive with ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
So we'll wrap up this. We'll get to this LeBron, Rich Paul stuff here in a second, but kind of because it's all related to the coaching conversation. I don't know how they must think that they can surround him with a quality staff that's got some experience. Like I don't think that they would really go deep down this road if they didn't think they could give him a good staff. It will require money, which is something they've been relatively reluctant to put out. But also, too, like, again, Cassell is in Boston. That's a great place. It's a great team, great setup, and a great place to launch your head coaching, campaign from. Borrego has the highest assistant job that you can get in New Orleans. Not everybody loves being in New Orleans, but it's not a bad situation. It's a good team. And Chris Quinn is in Miami. These
and
are
he's
all
seen
good.
by many people to be the heir to Spo.
Right. Granted, Spo's still like younger than I am. I think.
Sure, but Spo, there could come a point where, Spo is young, but there may come a point where he just decides, You know what, I've done everything I can do.
Or you just need a break.
Right. Need a break. You want a different challenge, whatever. At this point, there really isn't much new for Spo to do in Miami. So there could come a point where he decides, you know what, I'd rather be in the front office. I'd rather whatever, do like what Brad Stevens did with the Celtics.
By the way, he's actually older. He is older than I am. He's 53. But he's still reasonably young. He's just been at it for a while. This will be one of these things to kind of watch, because if it really does appear that when they have these interviews with whether it's Adelman, whether it's Nori, or whoever it is, that the needle isn't moving, and it really is Redick's job to lose in one way or another, there'll be more investigation into who's going to be on the staff, and so it's definitely something to watch. LeBron's reaction to all this is something to watch, and Rich Paul made a lot of waves over the weekend with an interview with Chris Haynes at Bleacher Report, who went on record, Andy, is saying that the Lakers really should be focusing on AD when it comes to the coaching search, not LeBron.
Yeah, everybody, by the way, should check out this Q&A with Chris Haynes and Rich Paul. We may end up revisiting some other items in there as well. He spent a lot of time talking about Bronny and the way Bronny is perceived and covered by the media, and the idea of whether he and LeBron, want to play together or something that they are trying to maneuver. There's a lot of really good stuff, and there was a good job by Chris. Mm-hmm. But this is what I thought was really interesting. These comments that stemmed from, going back to the coaching search, the idea that LeBron is not involved in this, not directly involved. And yes, there can be semantics to this. You can be indirectly involved, or not directly involved at all. But if they know how you feel, for somebody of LeBron's stature, you might as well.
They know how to find people who can check in with LeBron to get his opinion on something.
But anyway, this is part of something that has clearly become important to LeBron, and by extension, Rich Paul. The idea that LeBron is not the one pulling the strings, getting JJ Redick this job. should he end up the guy getting hired. But this is the part that's really interesting from Rich Paul. Quote, but as for the coaching search, this is a Lakers decision. I always advise LeBron, or anybody for that matter, not to really position yourself in a manner of which you have a hand so strong in a decision that it could come back to bite you down the road. With every team he's been on as a player, you have some type of insight, or the team may ask about your thoughts. That goes for every superstar. In my opinion, it's the really interesting part, the Lakers' focus should probably be more on Anthony Davis than LeBron at this point. I think for him to be so good for so long, people just think he being LeBron, controls the team. There's no controlling of the team. And JJ is a friend. We respect JJ. I know LeBron and JJ have a podcast. It goes on to say just because they have a podcast, that doesn't mean that he's trying to get his podcast partner this job. It'll be an organizational decision. But the part about the focus being more on Anthony Davis is interesting because, we've seen a couple different reports from people around the league thinking that this should be more of an Anthony Davis hire than a LeBron hire. But this also reflects something I've said on recent shows. I also have talked about over the course of this season, or maybe even last season as well. Given where they are in their respective careers, and Anthony Davis being the guy that's A, in his prime, B, in all likelihood, going to be here longer than LeBron, and C, the best player on the team with the heaviest lift. So in that sense, you should be thinking more about what that guy needs. Rich Paul is correct that because LeBron is LeBron, you tend to just reflexively think about everything through the lens of LeBron. Mm-hmm. But it really does make way more sense to be thinking about this more through the lens of AD. And it's not disrespectful to say that because Rich Paul has said this. It's totally true.
Yeah. There are a couple things. From a basketball standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, from a franchise standpoint, yes. Particularly if the Lakers are talking about getting their forever coach here. Like they want, we've all gone through the list of, commands a locker room, game plans relentlessly, grinder, like all of these things. Like they want a guy who they can hold on to maybe even for 3 years or 4 years, their forever coach. And if that's the case, that goes through into AD and beyond. Like, this is what they need. And you value AD's opinion because he's the one who's going to be here for, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And so, and Rich Paul says the stuff that is true. Like they are not going to hire somebody that LeBron doesn't approve of. That's a given. As he says, all stars are consulted, as they should be, and this is how this is going to be. So Anthony Davis deserves and will get a voice in this process. I have no doubt.
Doesn't mean necessarily a vote, but a voice.
No, and it shouldn't be a vote. And like this is, again, if the Lakers had a front office and a relationship with their stars that made a lot of sense and was really coherent, where everybody was on the same page and had deep levels of trust, every leak would sound the same. It would all be, we're all working together. The Lakers will ultimately make this decision, but of course we're consulting with our star players to make sure they're comfortable, but also too because their basketball knowledge is vast and their input is very valuable. I think there are 1,000 different ways for that message to be conveyed, and the Lakers aren't really. That's not really what is being conveyed. But what I will say too is, if you are looking for more signs that JJ Redick is winning this derby, the amount of times now that we've seen LeBron is not choosing the head coach, to Rich Paul taking a relatively extraordinary step of going on the record saying they shouldn't even been talking to my guy about it. They should be talking to the other guy. Like these are pretty, like it's because Redick is so close to LeBron and the connection there is so obvious. It's the guy he does a podcast with. And look, Redick interviewed in Toronto last year. He was apparently a finalist for Charlotte this year. Like he is one of these guys who is an up and coming head coach candidate. And so maybe he would be a candidate in LA with or without this podcast. But we don't live in a world where we get to find that out. The only world we live in is the one where he is LeBron's podcast partner. And so LeBron has to work extra hard to try to distance himself from this process, which is something he does every time. He does not want the idea of being lay GM unless, as you like to point out, Andy,
things go well.
Right. Then he wants
things
to
go well. In which case, he is the puppet master. But is it possible, Brian, that Rich Paul could be saying these things because maybe they shouldn't be thinking about who's coaching the team next year? Because do we know for sure LeBron's going to be on the team this year? As calculated as Rich Paul is, did he accidentally let something slip? Talk about that coming up next.
So I did the Dr. Evil $1 million sign, but some crazy stuff today that we saw on Sunday. Was it who tweeted this out? Was it Evan Sidery? I believe it was.
I believe it was, yes.
Yeah. And I don't know anything about where this, in terms of how you source something like this out or whatever the who exactly he's talking to. But the what he said was that Phoenix, Andy, Matt Ishbia is going to make a big push this summer because it is presumed, while he hasn't said one way or the other, it is assumed that LeBron is going to opt out of his deal. It has been reported for months that that's what he's going to do. But instead of signing back with the Lakers, Andy,
which is also the wide presumption.
Yes, but don't tell Matt Ishbia the odds, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, because that guy is bat bleep crazy and apparently is going to make a big push to try to get LeBron to join KD and Devin Booker and Bradley Beal in Phoenix, and then just going to win just titles in the Valley of the Sun.
Yeah, this is according to Evan Sidery, who covers the NBA for Forbes, Sporting News, and FanSided. This would also involve drafting Bronny, and that, according to Evan Sidery, serious draft option at 22 overall in order to try to engineer this plan. I'll tell you right now, and I say this with no sourcing whatsoever, but just a combination of common sense, and I think everyone will riot, including quite possibly LeBron. If the Suns are really going to take Bronny at 22, the Lakers are not going to best this by taking Bronny at 17.
No,
they're not going to do that. I actually think LeBron would block the call in.
Well, because too, from a basketball standpoint, I guess if you really thought it was going to bring LeBron, but of all the teams in the league who should not be punting on a draft pick, and Bronny could become a decent NBA player. I don't know, but he's not going to be NBA ready next year to contribute on a championship caliber team. And the Suns need bodies that can play now. If you think Jalen Hood-Schifino was a mistake for the Lakers, then Bronny James for the Suns is damn near catastrophic. So Matt Ishbia is insane. He's flat out insane. What are the odds to you that LeBron James, after this many years of talking about how he will only be playing basketball at a level of his worth, essentially playing for $1 million, it's not technically $1 million, because of his veteran minimum, or a taxpayer mid-level or something like that to go play. He's going to.
I don't even know if the Suns can get a mid-level. They're on the 8th apron. I don't know. I'm not sure they're eligible for one. I'm being serious. I don't even know if they can have. I'm not sure they have exceptions.
No, I think you might be right. And if they bring a little bubbler, a new water bubbler machine to their practice facility, I think that costs them an extra $7 million. Everything they do costs them money. But let's just say they could. LeBron is not doing that. He is not going to leave his family and all these other things to go play there for $3 million or $4 million or $2 million or $1 million.
Easy to hop on a bird, Brian. Go to Phoenix, get back to LA. That's an hour.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care if they make LeBron, if they make Bronny the head coach. He's not doing that. But it does. The report made me laugh because again,
fire up Leggett, Brian. It's easy.
Do you think there's any chance though LeBron, when he opts out, actually ends up signing somewhere else? Is that a 0% thing? Because I don't think it would be Phoenix, but
I would. Well, I think there's a zero. I think there's a 0% chance that he's going to Phoenix, if for no other reason than LeBron has seen that place is an effing mess. And I don't think he'll take the mess that he's currently with as opposed to a new mess. Thank you very much. And say this facetiously, I don't think the Lakers are actually a mess. I think they're in a tough situation. But if you remove the inability to ever hire a coach, and I don't think the Lakers are actually a mess. Phoenix is a mess.
Also, too, it's like that's not an up. Like if you say to yourself, this is a major upgrade in my situation, that's worth a $49 million pay cut. That ain't it.
No. Do I think it's a 0% chance? No, just because crazy things have happened, and if you want to put on a small tinfoil hat and say that
like a little,
like a tinfoil yarmulke. It's not like a full size hat. It's not like a 10-gallon hat. It's not even like a cap. It's like a.
I'm not really, Andy, sure we refer to those as hats. To be honest with you.
Well, they serve the same head covering.
We never got around to asking the rabbi at Sunday school: is a yarmulke considered a hat?
It's in the hat family, and I don't know if this is necessarily important to the conversation, but. Like, if you were to put on the small size tinfoil hat, you could say that Rich Paul has been messaging the idea of focus on AD, not LeBron, higher in mind with AD, not LeBron, because he could at least be massaging the way for LeBron to potentially leave. Therefore, seriously, don't hire a coach with him in mind because he may not be on the team. And this, again, tinfoil hat / yarmulke theory could be furthered by the idea that during a recent TNT playoff broadcast where they've got like the side panel of Bomani Jones and Vince Carter and Chris Haynes and a few others, Rich Paul was a guest. And in talking again about LeBron's not controlling the coaching search, this is not accurate, like this same storyline again, he referred to LeBron as a free agent, which LeBron is not unless he opts out of his player option, which, again, somebody could interpret that as and is weighing his options around the league. I also think it's a non-zero. I also think it's a non-0% chance just because crazy things occasionally do happen. I think it's a small chance beyond the whole he seems settled in LA thing. There are not a lot of teams that he could go to with a real chance of winning that have the cap space to pay LeBron what he rightly thinks he is worth.
Well, no, none. Really.
Well, Philadelphia could go close. If you believe Orlando is one LeBron away from really contending, they could give him all the money. There are a couple teams that could give LeBron a reasonable salary as a free agent, if not all the money. But he's not going to have a ton of options, and a sign and trade for LeBron is incredibly complicated, and I can't think of a team that could give away that much salary and still be worth joining.
Yeah, because the assumption is both that when Rich Paul says in the interview that seems to imply that LeBron is going to opt out, that's not really necessarily news. The only news would be is if he doesn't sort of opt out with a pretty good idea of, I'm not saying he signs it the next day, but what the Lakers are going to offer, what they're willing to do, and all of that. So that is the only reason. That's the reason I asked is there? It's not going to be Phoenix. I would be shocked if it was Phoenix.
It is not. I will say with 100% certainty, having made no calls, he's not going to Phoenix.
Right, and the Suns cannot engineer. Like the Lakers, I don't think a sign and trade would work there because neither team can take back a player that makes more. Maybe you offer Devin Booker. Maybe the Lakers can figure out how to make this work or something like that. But they're not doing that either. Anyway, plenty of other stuff to get into over the course of the week. We didn't get into some fascinating news about Mike Brown that emerged over the weekend in Sacramento. that doesn't necessarily impact the Lakers coaching search, but it does kind of contextualize it a little bit that I want to get into over the course of the week. Some more free agency news, and keep an eye on what's happening in the through the finals, and as we get close to the finals, I should say. Lockers on Lakers on YouTube is where you can hang out with over 24,000 subscribers, all of whom should be leaving mailbag questions, because we're going to lean hard into the mailbag over the course of this weekend, into as we get closer to the draft and stuff like that. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. We'll see you tomorrow.